Guys, how's it going? TJ here with Dead History, and I'm here today with Henry.
Hello.
And today is our next Declaration of Independence signer series, and we're taking a look today at who, Henry?
Lyman Hall.
That's right, the guy behind us, Lyman Hall. Another signer from the state of Georgia. Our second signer from the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
Got some really cool things to tell you about Lyman Hall. But first, before we get into Lyman Hall, what do the people need to do, Henry?
Hit subscribe down below, leave all your comments and questions, drop a like, and that's it.
He's got it. Subscribe down below, hit
the
it.
notification bell.
Yep, hit the little notification bell so you can be notified when we do release a new video. And Henry, when is that?
Every single week.
Every single week. Make sure you give us a like and a thumbs up, comments, questions, all that stuff. Great job, Henry. So here we go. We're going to take a look at the next signer from the state of Georgia, Lyman Hall. And this is
Dead History.
Dead History. Hey guys, TJ back with you here with Henry.
Hello.
And of course the guy behind us is Dr. Lyman Hall. Yeah.
Yes, doctor.
He was a doctor. He's one of 4 physicians to sign the Declaration of Independence, and our first one here in this series.
Yes.
So, Dr. Lyman Hall, some cool things to tell you. He was born in the state of Connecticut. Yeah, it was Connecticut, actually. And then he moved down to, I think, actually South Carolina first, and ended up in Georgia. But we're going to tell you all about that. Our second signer from the state of Georgia. Man, I tell you, you keep yawning. Everything okay? Did you get enough sleep last night? A little bit of partying hard for Halloween or what? I don't want to keep you awake or anything. Am I boring you? It keeps yawning on me over here. So we got to get him excited, right? We got to get you pumped up. We got to get you going here with Dr. Lyman Hall. Does that sound good to you?
Yes.
All right, so let's get into it. A second signer from the state of Georgia, and actually buried in kind of an interesting, kind of weird kind of place in Augusta, Georgia. Yeah, we're going to tell you all about that. So, Dr. Lyman Hall, they did the subscribes, they did the likes, the comments, questions, they did it all. Henry, now what do they got to do, dude?
Go get the popcorn, the pretzels, the potato chips, the soda.
All of it. Go get your snacks, right? Because you gummy bears,
Halloween candy.
the Halloween candy, whatever's going to keep you awake over here. So, here we go. Dr. Lyman Hall, Declaration of Independence signer from Georgia. Dead history here. We're looking forward to this one. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey guys, how's it going? TJ here with Dead History, and welcome to our next installment of our Declaration of Independence signer series. And this week we're taking a look at the signer from Georgia, the second signer we're doing from the state of Georgia, Lyman Hall. I'm actually here with a special guest, Henry.
Hello.
Hello, Henry. How you doing, dude?
I'm good.
So we got Dr. Lyman Hall this week, right?
Yes.
And do you remember where he was born? What state?
No. Connecticut.
Connecticut. There you go. And what state is he from when he signed?
Georgia.
Georgia. I just said it. There you go. So yeah, Lyman Hall, he was born in Connecticut, eventually made his way down to Georgia. He actually graduated from Yale, too. Yale University in Connecticut. So obviously a prestigious university and a really good education.
Yes.
We're going to learn some interesting things, some very cool things about his time in Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Very cool things. Some interesting sites and grave sites, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
So what else is going on, Henry? How's school? Good?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think of this Declaration of Independence signer series?
It's been good.
It's been good, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are loving it. I mean, we're diving into these guys more than almost anybody does, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. Well, Henry, I know, guys, I'm going to be solo, flying solo for the audio moving forward. But Henry wanted to make a quick hello and say hi real quick to the audience. You have anything else to add, Henry?
No.
That's it, huh?
That's it.
You're a man of very few words. You don't have much to say?
No.
Can you? I doubt you can, but I'll be super impressed. Can you tell me who the third and final signer from the state of Georgia would be next week? No, I didn't think so.
James Wright.
No. James Wright's not. I mean, it's a very good guess, but no. George Walton is actually the guy's name. But hey.
If I got the right, you have to give me like $100.
I would have to give you $100. What is this, a paying gig now? You got a salary I didn't know about? When did you make a contract?
Last year.
Last year? You signed a contract? Mm-hmm. Wow. You're getting paid more than Aaron Judge is going to get paid. All right, Henry. Well, thanks for stopping by, dude.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being a part of this.
You're welcome.
We'll see you, not next week probably, but the week after that, all right?
Yes.
All right, dude. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there you go. Henry making a little guest appearance. So as I said, moving forward, I will be flying solo for this audio portion here. In this part one, we got some really cool things to dive in and tell you about. Like I said, interesting things about Lyman Hall's time in Connecticut especially. So we're going to dive right into that in this part one. So without further ado, as they say, let's go. Declaration of Independence Signer Series, Part 1, taking a look at another signer from the state of Georgia, Dr. Lyman Hall. Here we go. Lyman Hall, the son of John and Mary Street Hall, was born on April 12th of 1724 in Wallingford, Connecticut. He was one of 5 children and the third son born to the Halls. Lyman received a fine education, including attendance and graduation from Yale during 1747 when he was 23 years old. In addition, he received instruction in theology from a relative and Congregationalist minister, the Reverend Samuel Hall. During 1749, Lyman began to preach, but as a candidate for the ministry, not as a pastor. That September, in the face of opposition by some, he was ordained, only to be fired during 1751 due to charges of immoral conduct. Subsequently, he was restored after offering repentance. He resumed preaching, but not from a stationary post. Rather, he essentially was a fill-in preacher for the Congregationalist Church. So as I said, Lyman Hall was born on April 12th of 1724 in Wallingford, Connecticut. You know what's really interesting, as I said to you, there's so many different sources with these, these signers and that sort of thing. So almost every source I read definitely says, so I'm 100% sure, April 12th, 1724 in Wallingford, Connecticut, that's where Lyman Hall was born, no doubt. Now, one of them says he was one of 5 children. Then another source I read said he was the 4th of 8 children. But that's definitely not right, because even when I look on the Find a Grave website, even at his parents' burial sites, it only lists 5 children under their children that are listed. So it's just interesting how it's so much. And then there's another source. I believe this is a book that was written a long time ago. I think it might even been in the 1800s. It actually says this, a sentence from it. Lyman Hall was a native of Connecticut, where he was born about the year 1731. 1731. Which is not true, because he was born in 1724. And 1724 is from several sources. So you're talking a difference of 7 years from one source to another. It's truly incredible. So, he was the son of John Hall, who was a minister, his father, and Mary Street Hall. We said he studied with his uncle Samuel Hall, graduated from Yale, which was a tradition in his family. 1749, he was called to the pulpit of Stratfield Parish, which is actually now Bridgeport, Connecticut. His pastorate was a stormy one. An outspoken group of parishioners opposed his ordination. As I said, in 1751, he was dismissed after charges against his moral character, which, according to one biography, were supported by proof and also by his own confession. He continued to preach for 2 more years, filling vacant pulpits while he studied medicine and taught school. So, there you have it. Taught school, he learned medicine. Now, a little bit about his parents. So, Lyman Hall was a descendant in the 5th generation of John Hall of Coventry, England, who crossed the Atlantic to Boston in 1633, removed to Hartford and New Haven in 1639, and later established his home in the village of Wallingford. That was John Hall. Lyman Hall's great-great-grandfather, Richard Lyman, was born in England and came to Boston in 1631 on the Lion. Mary Street, the mother of Lyman Hall, was the great-granddaughter of the Reverend Nicholas Street. He graduated from Oxford, came to America, and was at Taunton in the Plymouth colony in 1638. He moved to New Haven in 1659, where he was a colleague of Reverend John Davenport, one of the founders of the New Haven colony. So pretty interesting stuff. His family obviously traces all the way back, his descendants, to England. So pretty cool. So when Lyman Hall gave up his ministry, like I said, he was studying medicine, and he received the degree of Doctor of Medicine, which is pretty interesting. So he became a doctor. As I said, he was a physician. Now, Lyman Hall, during May of 1752, he actually married Abigail Burr, who was the daughter of Thaddeus and Abigail Burr of Fairfield, Connecticut. Abigail, according to the vital statistics of Fairfield, succumbed during June of 1753 at the age of only 24. Lyman Hall remained close with her family, which included her brothers Thaddeus and Gershom. Abigail's mother died during 1753 and her father in 1755. Lyman was one of the executors of Thaddeus's last will and testament. Subsequent to the death of Abigail, about 1757, Lyman Hall remarried, taking Mary Osborne as his wife. She was the daughter of Samuel and Hannah Couch Osborne, who also resided in Fairfield, Connecticut. Meanwhile, Lyman Hall also began to study medicine. Dissatisfied with his progress as a minister, he became a doctor. So, there you have it. Now I'm going to read you a little bit more about his marriage, his first marriage, and then, of course, before he actually left Connecticut. So, 1752, married Abigail Burr of Fairfield, Connecticut. She died the following year. 1757, he married Mary Osborne. And then he actually migrated to South Carolina and established himself as a physician at Dorchester, South Carolina, near Charleston, a community settled by Congregationalist migrants from Dorchester, Massachusetts, decades earlier. When these settlers moved to the Midway District, now Liberty County, in Georgia, Lyman Hall accompanied them. Lyman Hall soon became one of the leading citizens of the newly founded town of Sunbury. Now, interestingly enough, the thing that I kind of found interesting, Hall, and so as I said, he began studying medicine. He became a doctor. Him and his family set out for South Carolina to establish his medical practice. And after his arrival there, he began his practice in Dorchester but later relocated at Midway, Georgia, in St. John's Parish, which is later Liberty County. Lyman Hall's medical experience became an asset as the area was located in swamplands and many colonists came down with malaria. Subsequently, Lyman Hall, who also maintained a home in Sunbury, departed his plantation and returned to South Carolina, where he remained until 1764 before again returning to Georgia. So he went to South Carolina from Connecticut, established a medical practice, then he went to Georgia, then he went back to South Carolina. So pretty interesting stuff. I didn't know that until I was really reading up more about him. Hey guys, so before we continue on with where we're at, of course, we just discussed where Lyman Hall obviously, went down to Georgia, established himself, then he went to South Carolina, then back to Georgia. So we're kind of at that point, kind of leading up to that Revolutionary War time period. But I wanted to give you guys a quick update. I know we took 2 weeks off. One of those weeks was due to the fact that, of course, I was diagnosed and came down with COVID for the first time. I almost survived 3 full years without getting COVID, but I got it. I had a mild case, but, being a diabetic for many years, it definitely did cause some havoc on my blood sugar levels and that sort of thing. So that was not fun, but doing well now, of course. And I'm here with a special guest today. Hey, Henry.
Hi.
How you doing, dude?
Good.
So, Henry, in this part 1, we're already into, kind of his early life and now like his time moving down to Georgia. But you and I just recently took a trip to where?
Connecticut. Connecticut.
And what's in Connecticut, Henry? Who was born there?
Calvin
Coolidge. You silly boy. That's Vermont.
Lyman Hall.
Lyman Hall, that's right. And we saw his birthplace, right, in Connecticut?
Yes.
And what else did we see in Connecticut? The grave sites of who?
His siblings and his parents.
Yeah, that's right. His siblings and his parents. Very good. So, yeah, Henry and I took a trip to Fairfield, Connecticut, where we're going to show you some cool bonus footage because Lyman Hall lived there. But he was born in a town by the name of Wallingford, Connecticut. And they have some nice memorials and monuments to him, right?
Yep.
And his parents are buried there in his hometown. So we're going to tell you all about that. We're going to show you that in bonus footage here in part 1. So that'll be pretty cool, right, dude?
Yep.
Well, what's been going on, Henry? Anything?
Nothing.
How you been feeling? Good?
Yes.
Yeah, how's school going?
Good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Baseball season's all over with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So what now? Tell the people, what are you going to be doing now?
Hanging out with you.
That's it? But you're going to be joining what? Flag football?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yes.
You're a man of very few words. You're kind of like Calvin Coolidge. Silent Henry, I guess. Well, thanks for stopping in and saying hi, Henry.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you soon, right?
Yes.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So to read a little bit more about when he did go down to Georgia, basically there were certain leaders of the Dorchester settlers. Basically, it was kind of a new community down. It was on the Ashley River. It was near Charleston, South Carolina. And they called, the settlers in that area, they called the community there Dorchester. So there was a certain amount of Dorchester settlers and leaders that were worried about land sufficiency for their longer-term future. And a lot of them actually started to kind of look and eye south, to lands in Georgia. Now, what happened was, eventually, a grant was actually obtained by these settlers and leaders for like 22,000 or something to that effect acres of land and swamps in the Midway district of St. John's Parish, which is now Liberty County. So we're talking about down in that Savannah, Georgia area. And then what happened was basically the settlers and founders of that Dorchester community in South Carolina, they just emigrated from Dorchester probably in the early 1750s or so. And they basically made it down there. And Lyman Hall basically followed the fortunes of his newly formed friends from Dorchester, and he accompanied them down there to they called it the Midway District or Midway Settlement. And yeah, I mean, really his life changed because he started from being a fifth generation Connecticut Yankee, colonial basically, to that of an immigrant settler of Georgia's low country. And during this time when he was down in Georgia, Lyman Hall, he became the owner of a small plantation north of the Midway Meeting House on the Savannah-Darien Highway. The region where the Dorchester congregation settled was densely wooded, marshy, and filled with game. The waters were alive with fish, alligators, terrapins, and snakes. In either ignorance or disregard of the health dimensions, the immigrants located their plantation dwellings in plantation quarters on the edges of the swamps, ripe with malarial exposure. While vegetables were planted on the upland, attention was centered in the cultivation of the big money crop, rice. And to that end, great labor was spent clearing, ditching, and draining the swamps. The noxious, polluted soil was thus exposed to the action of the searing sun, bringing much sickness and considerable mortality. With malaria in the summer and fall, and pleurisy in the winter and spring, Dr. Lyman Hall found ample employment for his best professional skill and endeared himself to the community. And then the town of Sunbury, down there in Georgia, was laid out on high, beautiful land facing the Midway River. Dr. Lyman Hall bought two of the nicest lots and built a summer residence there, as did many members of the Midway congregation. He enjoyed visiting his patients. His reputation as a successful practitioner and a bedside manner of sympathizing friend was most enviable. He soon became the leading physician of the town and adjacent county, and all the countryside down there in that general area. Dr. Hall was still a young man in his early 30s. He was 6 feet tall, well-proportioned, cultured and educated, had polite manners, and was of a well-rounded character. His public spirit and thoughtful views rendered him popular among the inhabitants of St. John's Parish. The man had it. Perhaps charisma is the word today. In the gathering political storm of 20-year durations, when the differences between England and her American colonies were discussed and separation between them was seriously considered, Lyman Hall's sympathies from the first were with the Liberty Boys, and he boldly espoused liberation from the kingly rule. Perhaps it was his Congregationalist preacher's background which aided his articulation as he became leader and spokesman for the Puritan agitation rampant in St. John's Parish. From another source that I read, it says, of course, he started off in Connecticut, then removed 1752 to South Carolina. He was induced, however, during the same year to remove to Georgia, where he established himself at Sunbury in the district of Medway. Instead of Midway, they spell it Medway, Medway. In this place, he continued attending to the duties of his profession until the commencement of the Revolutionary contest. On the arrival of this important crisis in the history of the colonies, the patriotism of Dr. Lyman Hall became greatly excited to the interests and dangers of his country. He perceived that the approaching storm must necessarily be severe, but with the kindred spirits of the North, he was determined to meet it with patriotic firmness and resolution. having accepted of a situation in the parish of St. John, which was a frontier settlement, both his person and property were exposed to great danger from his proximity to the Creek Indians and to the loyal province of Florida. The parish of St. John at an early period of the contest entered with great spirit into the general opposition of the country against Great Britain, while a majority of the inhabitants of Georgia entertained different sentiments. So widely different were the views and feelings of the people of this parish from those of the inhabitants of the province generally that an almost entire separation took place between them. So you can see how this is all leading up to that Revolutionary War time frame, and then of course, when we're going to get to the Declaration signing and that sort of thing. Very interesting stuff, no doubt. So, I wanted to also touch a little bit about Wallingford. Wallingford, Connecticut is where, obviously, Lyman Hall was born. On April 12th of 1724. Studied theology. He became ordained as a minister. We all know this Hall's short career as a preacher began in Fairfield, but he soon abandoned the ministry and undertook an apprenticeship in medicine and returned to Wallingford to set up his practice as a physician. In 1756 or 57, after only a short period in Wallingford, Lyman Hall relocated to the South, moving between South Carolina and Georgia several times before finally settling in Georgia in 1774. Now a plantation owner as well as a physician, Hall engaged himself in colonial politics. So, we learned about that. Now, Wallingford is interesting. So, Fairfield, Connecticut is where Lyman Hall definitely lived. He was born in Wallingford, and then he lived in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is not too far. It's about a 30, maybe 35-minute drive, Wallingford from Fairfield. Wallingford's a little bit north of Fairfield. So not far at all. And the interesting thing is when I reached out to the local Fairfield museum in Fairfield, Connecticut. So basically what happened is a historian there from the Fairfield Museum, he actually sent me a microfilm copy of the marriage record in the Fairfield First Congregational Church. The first church is still around to this day in Fairfield, and it's been there since the 1600s. Now, the structure itself has been changed many times over the years. Actually, the historian told me he believed that the previous iterations of the church burned. But very interesting stuff. Now, very cool thing. Lyman Hall definitely, when he was in Fairfield, Connecticut. Now, remember, he married Abigail Burr in Fairfield, Connecticut, and she died very shortly after they married. She was only 24 years old when she died. So she died very, very young. I really haven't been able to find too much out about what she died of. It's kind of hard to know, really, but she was 24 years old only. And I know for a fact she's buried in Fairfield, Connecticut, his first wife. And actually the inscription on her headstone reads, "Here lies buried the body of Mrs. Abigail Hall, wife of Lyman Hall, daughter of Thaddeus Burr, died July 8th, 1753, aged 24 years. Modest yet free, with innocence adorned, to please and win, by art and nature formed. Benevolent and wife, in virtue firm, constant in friendship, in religion warm. A partner tender, unaffected kind, a lovely form with a more lovely mind. The scene of life, though shortish, improved so well, no charms in human forms could more excel. Christ's life her copy, his pure law her guide, each part she acted, perfected, and died." So that's at the Ye Old Burying Grounds of Fairfield, Connecticut. So the old burying ground of Fairfield, Connecticut, the reason I bring it up right now, His first wife, Abigail Burr Hall, is buried there, as you'll see soon. Her family, her father, who is Thaddeus Burr, and her mother, Abigail Burr, they're buried there also. But the other reason that I bring up the old burying ground in Fairfield, Connecticut is because Lyman Hall definitely enslaved at least 2 people in the town of Fairfield, Connecticut. Though there were likely more whom we just not have been able to document, I found 2 for sure. One of them, of the enslaved people that Lyman Hall owned and enslaved, his name was Amos. He was born on June 7th of 1755, and he died December 8th of... It says birth June 7th, 1755, death December 8th of 1756, but that is actually wrong. Found out it was much later than that when he actually died, of course, because that would have only made him a year old. Now, the other one's name is Primus. He was born on June 7th of 1757. So, those are 2, Amos and Primus, are 2 enslaved people who Lyman Hall definitely owned while he was in the town of Fairfield, Connecticut. Now, the family book being referenced here is a genealogical register that was kept by the town clerk in Fairfield's town center. This would have been right next to the first church, the town center. So all that being said, anyone enslaved by a member of the first church likely would have been buried in the Fairfield Old Burying Ground. Despite the fact that the town of Fairfield had over 1,000 enslaved people, not a single headstone is in the burying ground names a enslaved person. Enslaved people were almost always buried in unmarked graves, either in the corners of the burying grounds or on private property of the actual slaveholder that enslaved them. So, more than likely, Amos and Primus, who were enslaved people by Lyman Hall, are buried in that old burying ground somewhere in Fairfield, Connecticut. So, interesting stuff. So, we're going to end things right here, guys, for part 1. We took a look at the early life, born in Wallingford, Connecticut, moved eventually to Fairfield, Connecticut, about 30 minutes or so south, married Abigail Burr in Fairfield, Connecticut. She died very shortly after their marriage. She's buried in Fairfield. He enslaved at least 2 people in the town of Fairfield when he lived there. And then he went from Fairfield, Connecticut, back up to Wallingford when he became a physician. But then he eventually moved to South Carolina. He obviously founded and, he was one of the first people that was in that Dorchester community. And then they all congregated and emigrated down to Liberty County, which is basically where like Sunbury is, Sunbury, Georgia. So in that Savannah, Georgia area. And he went back and forth to South Carolina and Georgia several times, as we know. He eventually landed and stayed in Georgia for the remainder of his life. So very interesting stuff. The early life of Lyman Hall, Dr. Lyman Hall, I might add. And please stay tuned. I have some wonderful bonus footage in this part 1 where you're going to see some of the sites and locations of his early life in Wallingford, Connecticut and Fairfield, Connecticut. So stay tuned. Some really great bonus footage here. And then tomorrow in part 2, we're going to take a look at the life basically right as the Revolutionary War breaks out among the colonies and in the colonies. So the Revolutionary War time frame all the way up to Lyman Hall being one of the 3 Georgia signers of the Declaration of Independence, and then his legacy in life after signing the Declaration, and then his death, and a look at his gravesite, all tomorrow in part 2. Thank you so much, guys, for your patience. I apologize for the 2 weeks off. Glad you guys stuck with me and you're patient. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the subscribes, the likes, the comments, the questions, all of it. Keep it coming, please. And stay tuned for the bonus footage. And stay tuned for part 2 tomorrow, our conclusion of Dr. Lyman Hall. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow. Guys, how's it going? TJ here with Dead History. And I'm here with Mr. Henry.
Hello.
We're going to turn you around, guys, real quick. So we are actually in Fairfield, Connecticut. And you see the First Church Congregational. I believe Henry and I are going to take a walk down here. I believe this is the church building, like right over here. So this church, now it's not the exact church. Of course, I look back and Henry's, being an acrobat. So this church, somewhere right on these grounds, it's not the exact church to this day, but this is where Lyman Hall got married to his first wife. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, this is all part of the church building, but I think this is the actual church up here. So you see Old Post Road, Historic District, Fairfield. So you see this old church building here. So Lyman Hall, he got married here to his first wife. Again, this is not the actual church. I mean, we're talking, obviously, this is back in the, 1750s or something to that effect. And I'm actually going to show you guys the church, the actual marriage records. But this right here, somewhere on these grounds, is where the original church stood. And this is where Lyman Hall and his first wife got married. I'm going to come right back in a minute here. Hold on. Hey guys, TJ back with you. So there you go. This church right here, there's Henry. Right here in Fairfield, Connecticut. The First Church. Oh. Very cool. Got the chimes going on. So this is where Lyman Hall, I believe it was around 1752, where Lyman Hall married his first wife, Abigail Burr. So they were married only for a short time before she died. But this, the First Church Congregation, is where it took place. So pretty cool stuff. Just wanted to show you guys that. Pretty neat, right, Henry?
Yeah.
Here in Fairfield, Connecticut. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, TJ here with Dead History, and I'm actually here at the Fairfield Old Burying Ground. Very historic cemetery. I'm going to flip you guys around. So we're actually, there's Henry up there. We're actually looking for the grave of Abigail Burr Hall, which was Lyman Hall's first wife. She's buried here along with her family. Now, the other interesting thing is, when Lyman Hall lived in Fairfield, Connecticut, there is record that he did own 2 enslaved people. He did hold 2 enslaved people. Their names were Amos and Primus. Amos and Primus, according to genealogical records, I guess there were some records of them in the First Church that I showed you guys, where Lyman Hall and his first wife Abigail, whose grave we're looking for, where they got married. So those genealogical records from that church and those kind of records do indicate Amos and Primus. And I have a birth date and a death date of both Amos and Primus. Now, what is interesting, what a local historian here in Fairfield, Connecticut has told me, is obviously enslaved colored people from that era, there was no records of where they were buried. Like 99% of the time, there's no records. However, more than likely, they would have been buried here in this cemetery somewhere. in this old burying ground here in Fairfield, Connecticut. But of course, there's no gravestone or marker to indicate where they're buried. And there's no record really of, you know, where a burial plot or site would be for them. However, 100% more than likely, probably, you can bet your bottom dollar type thing from what the historian told me, both Amos and Primus, who were two enslaved men that were owned by Lyman Hall during his time here in Fairfield, Connecticut, they're buried somewhere here in this cemetery. So pretty interesting stuff about Lyman Hall. Now, he may have owned more slaves, but the record that we could track down indicates definitely Amos and Primus for sure. So pretty interesting. We're gonna search around more for Abigail Burr Hall's grave, and once we find it, we will come back to you guys. Thanks. Hey guys, TJ back with you. Henry over there. Hello, Henry. Still here at the old burial ground. So this is the gravesite of Thaddeus Burr and Abigail Burr, who are the parents of Abigail Burr Hall. So this would have been Lyman Hall's in-laws, mother-in-law and father-in-law. And then his first wife, Abigail Burr Hall, is right here. Abigail Hall, and you see it right here. See if you can see that. Wife of Lyman Hall. So there you go, wife of Lyman Hall, Abigail Burr Hall. You can see the headstones kind of demolished. But there you go. That's the gravesite here in Fairfield, Connecticut of Abigail Burr Hall, Lyman Hall's first wife. Pretty cool stuff. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, how's it going? TJ here with Dead History. Here with Henry.
Hello.
And we're gonna flip you around. As you see, I mean, we're right next to a little house here. There's a baseball field right across the street, kind of on this main road. This is Elm Street. We're in Wallingford, Connecticut. Wallingford, Connecticut. And the reason we're here is, kaboom. So, we're at the Lyman Hall Monument, as you see. And there's this cool gate here that we're gonna go into. All right. And you walk up to this monument and it says, "The birthplace of Lyman Hall, a signer of the Declaration of Independence. This rock from Connecticut soil marks the beginning of the life of one of the living stones which, coming from this town, made strong the foundation of our republic." So pretty cool stuff, and it's pretty cool because it's, you know, right next to like houses here. Pretty cool. It looks like a bench in memory of someone. Henry's playing with a stick near the street, of course, like a typical little boy. It looks like a flagpole, no flag hanging, but really cool. Pretty cool little place. So I don't know if this is the exact location, but you know, somewhere near this area and in this town, of course, is where Lyman Hall was born. So it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, just wanted to show you guys this. I think this is really neat. So there you go. Birthplace monument of Lyman Hall here in Wallingford, Connecticut. So we'll be back and show you some more, I'm sure. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, TJ here with Dead History. Behind me somewhere, there he is. There's Henry. And we're in Wallingford, Connecticut, and we're at the Center Street Cemetery. Let me flip you guys around. So, Center Street Cemetery. Actually, Lyman Hall's parents are buried here, along with a few of his siblings, I believe. And this right here, I'm almost positive, yes, this is a monument to Lyman Hall. So we're going to take a look right here. As you see, the state of Georgia having removed to Augusta the remains of Lyman Hall. So, originally covering his, Lyman Hall, and there erected a monument to the memory. The tablet originally covering his grave was in 1857. So apparently this is maybe the original. Beneath the stone, yep, remains Lyman Hall. So the original grave site of Lyman Hall. And then he was removed to go to Augusta, Georgia. Beneath this stone lies the remains of Lyman Hall, formerly governor of the state. American who he was uniformly a patriot. Pretty cool stuff. Kind of take a look there and read that if you would like. If you'd like to pause or do anything like that. So pretty cool. So I mean, I'm not really sure because it says the state of Georgia having removed to Augusta the remains of Lyman Hall, a signer of the Declaration, and there erected a monument to his memory. The tablet originally covering his grave was in 1857 presented by William to this state, by whose order it is deposited in his native town. Okay, so it is not his original gravesite. I didn't think it was. I know he was definitely buried in Georgia, and I didn't think he was ever removed. So this is just the original stone where that he was buried underneath. And then it was obviously donated here to the state of Connecticut and Wallingford, Connecticut, where Lyman Hall was from. So that is pretty cool, though. I mean, this is the original stone right here, that Lyman Hall's original burial site down in Georgia. I believe he was buried originally on his plantation. I want to say it was like, was it Knott's Hall or something like that, or Hall's Knoll? Something to that effect. Might have been Hall's Knoll. But that was down in Georgia, and I'm pretty sure that's where he was originally buried, was on his plantation site, and then he was moved to Augusta, Georgia. So stayed in the same state, of course, but I guess this was the original stone that was at the plantation where he was buried, which is really cool. So pretty cool stuff, guys. We'll check back in once we find his parents. Right, Henry?
Yes.
Hey, guys. TJ and Henry.
Hello.
There you go. Let's flip around. So there you go. The gravesite of John Hall. And that's the parents of Lyman Hall. So it's John Hall and his wife. Forgot her name off the top of my head. But they're both buried right here in this plot. So the parents of Lyman Hall here in Wallingford, Connecticut, the birthplace town of the Declaration signer Lyman Hall. Pretty cool stuff. There you go, guys. We're going to find, believe some of his siblings are around here too. We'll find some of them too. So here we go. So I got it right now. John Hall, his father. John Hall, his father there. Mary Hall, his mother. Giles Hall, his brother. Pretty cool stuff. That's his brother. Then there's two more. His sister and his other brother. Street Hall, believe it or not, is the one's name. Let's try to see. Here's his dad again. Try to find that one for us, Henry. Street Hall is his name. Colonel Street Hall. Let's see what we got here. Now, Tuttles. I think we're definitely going the wrong way. Probably this way, I would think. He's got another sibling here, too. One of his sisters. I think he had 2 sisters. One of them is here, too, as well. Let's see if we can find his other brother. We'll be right back. We got it down pat, I think. Here's Colonel Street Hall. That's another one of his siblings. So brother Street Hall here. Father John Hall there. Mother Mary Hall there. Brother Giles Hall there. Now we got to find his other sister, which is like Susanna Hall or something to that effect. She's right around. She's around here. So there you go. Pretty cool stuff. She's definitely in this plot area somewhere. Probably one of these. I'm just not reading it. Pretty cool. The Hall family.